A massage chair might seem a bit extravagant, especially these days. 8 different settings, adjustable intensity, plus it's heated, and it just feels so good. Yes, a massage chair might seem a bit extravagant, but when it can come with a car, suddenly it seems quite practical. The all-new 2025 Volkswagen Tiguan, packed with premium features like available massaging front seats, it only feels extravagant.
Listen, life's all about leveling up. Whether you're handling business on the field or kicking it in your zone, you like to celebrate with cigars that match the moment. That's why you should link up with Famous Cigars to bring you a wild deal. Right now, you can grab 8 premium cigars for just $8. You heard that right. 8 top-rated cigars at $1 a stick. Top quality brands like Oliva, Romeo y Julieta, and Davidoff. Hand-picked just for you and worth over $80. Hit up famouscigars.com/cam and lock in this exclusive deal. While you're there, check out their insane selection of premium cigars, all shipped fresh and fast from their massive 20,000 square foot humidor. That's half a football field. Famous Cigars has been in the game since 1939 and still family owned. So celebrate every win with the folks at Famous. 8 cigars for $8. famouscigars.com/cam.
What's up, y'all? It's Drewski, and I've teamed up with Mountain Dew to produce a hilarious new basketball podcast called The Dew Zone with Drewski. Learn the backstories of your favorite ballers and celebrities like Jamal Murray. Did you have like a favorite team? Was it the Raptors at the time or no? Was the Raptors even started around that time?
Come on, bro.
I ain't that old, fam. You talking like I'm 50.
Taylor Rooks, Asia Wilson, and many more. You won't want to miss this. Listen to The Dew Zone with Drewski on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to podcasts.
This is Greg Olson, inviting you to check out my new Blue Wire podcast, TE1, where I interview tight ends throughout the history of the NFL who have helped revolutionize the position. TE1 is presented by the Chevy Silverado. The Silverado is all about grit. It's strong and dependable, exactly like playing tight end. Just like the incredible players we sit down with on the podcast, the Chevy Silverado is in a league of its own. Strong, advanced, and dependable. Download TE1 today, wherever you listen to podcasts.
The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast. It is Monday, September 28th, 2020, and my man Goran Dragic is going to the NBA Finals. Sam, can you believe it?
I can't believe it. I mean, I can believe it because it's happening. If you had asked me 3 months ago, I would have told you that I can't believe it. If you were a time traveler.
I was high on the Heat, as you know. I love Eric Spoelstra.
But
there's no world where I would have predicted that they would have made it to the NBA Finals. I thought Toronto. I thought like a long shot for Boston, but Goran Dragic is going to be in the NBA Finals. We get to actually watch that. It's a bizarre world.
And not only that, but Goran Dragic is going to be one of the key players on the Miami Heat and NBA Finals team. Like, how cool is that? This is a guy who has been to the finals a few times now. Has been to the playoffs a few times now with Miami, and he gets better every year.
Yeah.
It's really incredible. He slowed down a little bit recently, but he started the playoffs, I remember, on a streak of like 7 or 8 straight games of 20-plus points, and even though he slowed down a little bit, he has looked like a very, very competent starting point guard who has outplayed some other guys who are pretty good at their position, including obviously other former Sun Eric Bledsoe in one of those series.
Yeah.
Good for Goran, man, and good for Derrick Jones Jr. too. I'm just going to shout him out quickly. Another former Sun who should not have been cut by Ryan McDonough a few years ago in favor of Mike James.
Yeah.
He's a guy who maybe won't log as much playing time, but in the finals. We'll see. He's been a little bit inconsistent in the playoffs, but rooting for both of those guys, it's really nice to see.
Yeah, I think it's an easy pick for Suns fans as far as who you want to root for. One of them is the Lakers, and the other one has Goran Dragic and Derek Jones Jr. on it.
Yeah, so. I mean, look, Suns fans are, regardless, and I know there are a lot of Suns fans that frankly don't give a shit about basketball outside of Suns basketball, even if it has Goran Dragic or Derek Jones Jr. on one team. So, but for them, maybe a motivator will just be they don't want to see Lakers fans be happy.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what it is. This is not the purpose of this episode. Obviously, we're going to do a mailbag. We're going to talk about the mail in a second. Very briefly, any hot takes about what this series means for LeBron's legacy, or is that entirely too tired of a conversation for you?
Well, I guess it's a little... I think that judging like the greatest of all time is a stupid conversation in general. I know we've touched on this probably exactly a year ago if this were a normal NBA Finals timeline. Unfortunately, it's September somehow, and the NBA Finals are just about to start. But I think, you're just judging different things, and it's impossible to judge different eras. And, I think that LeBron is one of the greatest of all time, and that's how to judge it for me. Like, I think there was an interesting conversation recently, and I'm taking us on a longer tangent here, but there was an interesting conversation of the MVP, and Giannis won the MVP, and LeBron was asked about it, and LeBron said, it's just a little weird how the voting works. He brought up a time where he was first team all defense, and Marc Gasol won Defensive Player of the Year and was second team all defense, and he just kind of says, how does that happen? And I think in a sense, so many people grab onto that and say LeBron, he just wants to win every award. Well, the thing is he's the best player in the NBA, and he has been the best player in the NBA basically for the last 12, 13, 14 years. And to me, every single MVP that has won, if they switched places with LeBron, outside of Steph Curry, because I think Steph Curry's right there, if they switch places with LeBron, the team gets better with LeBron, including the Bucks this year.
It's always narrative based.
Yeah,
it's always been narrative based, and you can't be a Suns fan and not admit that were it not for narrative, Steve Nash wouldn't have 2 MVPs. It's the name of the game.
It's a combination of who does really well, tries really hard, and has the best narrative.
Right,
it's really what it is.
But there's so much precedent behind it now that you can't change it.
Right, no, and I don't mind it. I think that's just what it is. I think that the smartest basketball analysts, as I said it on Twitter, the smartest basketball analysts already get what it is. They understand that the MVP is not going to be given to the best player in the NBA every single season, because the best player in the NBA is about so much more than just what happens in that regular season. Because like somebody could roll their ankle. They might be better, but they missed 20 games. So now they can't be MVP. That's the kind of thing that happens that's sort of narrative-based as well. The best ability is availability, as they all like to say, but that doesn't make them the better player. Ultimately, it's almost always been LeBron. Steph Curry does something different where he just makes the team impossible to guard, though. So I just want to say, Steph Curry is perfect for his team and what they do. But LeBron was, he's the best player in the NBA for 15 years, basically, and not very many people were that. And yeah, maybe he wins an NBA Finals. I'm just rooting against him. Which I don't usually do. I'm a fan of LeBron, but now that he's in purple and gold, I can't do it. I don't know. How do you feel about LeBron in this whole tired debate?
I love LeBron. I think you're right. We've made this comment before on the podcast. We'd be really bad at generating ratings in an ESPN style way, because I think we're both basically saying that the MJ versus LeBron debate doesn't really matter. I can just tell you that I'm rooting against LeBron. It's nothing against him in this particular series. But yeah, I hope he ends up 3-7. It would be really nice to see Miami and succeed, and Dragic win a ring, and Spoelstra continue to add to his pedigree as a coach and his resume. Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, that's basically how I feel too. Just go Goran Dragic, go win a title. That would be amazing. And Spo, I consider him the best coach, so I would like that. I would like that to be the general consensus at this point. We took questions. We're going to do a mailbag here.
It's been a while.
It's been a while.
It's been 2 months, and specifically, the Suns went 8-0 in the bubble.
Right.
The last time we did a mailbag was with David Nash, and it took so long to get through every single question that we broke it up into 2 episodes spanning a total of 2.5 hours. Mm-hmm. And that was 2 months ago, but that was before the Suns went 8-0. So I think there's some really, really interesting stuff you guys came up with in response to it.
Yeah, and this one's from Reddit. That one was from Twitter. We went back to our roots here and got questions from Reddit, and we're going to try to get through as many as possible here. Thank you to everyone who asked us questions. We definitely appreciate it. So let's just start. We're just going to go down the line, the most upvoted, and see how many we get through here. First question from Sadbino. Do you think there's a player that James Jones would reach for, in quotes, reach, in this draft? We're going to talk a lot about the draft. We know now that it's the middle of November that the draft is going to be, so at least we have some sort of end game here. Do you think there's a player that James Jones would reach for, Sam?
Well, I think the two obvious guys that people have thrown out, and we've covered one of them a little bit extensively on this podcast already, are Aaron Nesmith and Desmond Bane. We talked with Spencer Perlman about Desmond Bane, and I think the reason he makes a lot of sense for the Suns is maybe you want to prototype him or stereotype him as a James Jones guy, is he's a 4-year player. So the idea is he's coming in a little bit more ready to contribute from year one, and he's the best shooter, or arguably the best shooter in the class. So if you kind of want a repeat of Cam Johnson, he is different than Cam Johnson in a bunch of ways that I can get into, then that would be one option. I looked it up out of curiosity. He is currently ranked 32nd on Tankathon's big board. And I also looked at Kevin O'Connor's big board for a couple of prospects because I was intrigued by his opinion on it. He has him 22nd. I've talked to Richie about Des Bane before too, our friend Mavs Draft, who I don't believe he told me exactly where he was on his big board, but I did kind of pose the question to him, if the Suns took Bane at 10, is that a disaster? And he said it's certainly a swing, but it's maybe not a disaster. If you could, he kind of phrased it as this would be a situation where if the Suns found a way to trade down, like Boston has picks 14 and 26 and 30. We've brought that up before. Yeah. Maybe if you could package 10 for 14 and 26 or 14 and 30, and you take Bane at 14 or something. I think he said that he might be comfortable taking him in the teens, but would definitely be a swing at 10. Irrespective of his ability as a draft guy, as a James Jones guy, sorry. And then the other guy, Aaron Nesmith, is mocked a little bit higher on some big boards, and he's just there to be a shooter. He's, I think, a second-year player, 6'6", plus wingspan at 6'10", but no one knows if he can do anything but shoot. Yeah. And he's just a shooter. So if James Jones wants to take a swing on just another shooter who he thinks is going to be, again, an instant contributor, he could go that route as well.
Yeah, Nesmith, or is it Nesmith or Naismith? Do you know how to say his name? I've heard it. I feel like I've heard it Nesmith, but I don't know if that's right.
I believe it's Nesmith.
I think he's interesting. He's you brought up Kevin O'Connor in the Ringers draft board. He's 14th on theirs. It's the type of guy that if the Suns drafted Nesmith, you could say, oh, the Suns once again got the best shooter in the draft. That would be the type of reach you could say with Nesmith, but he's mocked lower, just like you said, on a lot of these draft boards. I think other guys, Kira Lewis Jr., I'm not sure where he is mocked on a lot of mock drafts, but I know it's past 10 a lot of times.
Yeah, he's. I don't think he would be considered a reach, though. I think
that's the thing about this draft, right? Is so many of the draft boards are so drastically different. I think Bane is a good one, where he's generally in the 20s or 20s to 30s.
Bane is generally in the 20s to 30s. I have never seen him mocked as high as 10. But honestly, the reason I've seen a lot of people say Bane is the best shooter in the draft, and again, I feel like we have to preface every draft conversation with this. Mike and I are not draft guys. There are people who, for the millionth time, we're saying that there are people who do a lot more research on this stuff than we do. Yeah. The experts that I follow believe that, and for what I think is a very self-explanatory reason, Bane has shot close to 45% from college three for 4 years at TCU. Mm-hmm. Nesmith had a 14-game sample this year of shooting above 50% from three, but it was 14 games, and his freshman season, he shot like 35%, something not that special. So to me, it's almost like, I've watched tape on both of these guys. Obviously, I see the potential in Nesmith as the best shooter in the class, but also it's like Frank Kaminsky could heat up for 15 games and conceivably shoot 50% from three. Aaron Aaron Baines literally
Baines did. Yeah.
Baines
In the
literally at the
NBA.
NBA level literally did do that.
I mean,
So,
wide open every time, though.
right. That's a good point. But I think there is a good argument for Bane as a guy who, he's kind of more of the JJ Redick prototype in that he's 6'6" with like a 6'4"
Yes.
or 6'5"
I'm glad you said
wingspan.
that. I'm glad you said that.
It limits his defensive ability.
He's got T-Rex arms.
But
he's very strong. He's like a big guy. I just want to say about Neesmith. First of all, I just want to tell everyone listening to this now, if the Suns draft either Neesmith or Bane, I will immediately talk myself into either one of those guys as like a potential high end role player for the Suns. And I want to bring that back to this. And why though? It's because the Suns have Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton, and building a team around two guys that you can look at as potential cornerstones for your team is so much easier than what the Suns were doing before you were like 100% certain about Devin Booker and like whatever we are, 75% certain about Ayton. Because I don't know, maybe higher for some people. Yeah, look, that's about where I was with Devin Booker after year 2 as well. Probably a little bit higher because it's just so obvious with Booker. And his mental toughness. But like Neesmith is 6'6" with a 6'10" wingspan, and he's possibly the best shooter in the draft. Yeah, I'm in. Like, if you just tell me that, I'm probably in as far as how he could fit around these guys.
I think the problem with him is that you watch him and he doesn't move.
Right.
Like you'd want him to. And
that sounds like Cam Johnson, though, right?
I know it does. Look, guys, I'll put it this way. If the Suns take either of these players, they are going to be considered reaches. Yeah. You are going to see the Suns get panned on draft night, as they did last year. And we shouldn't necessarily care about that because I think it worked out with Cam Johnson. But rest assured, if the Suns take either Desmond Bane or Aaron Neesmith on draft night, all of the analysts are going to come out and say, I have no idea why they did this. The Suns clearly lost the draft. They should have taken, whoever. And to be fair, those people might be right. If Killian Hayes drops to 10 and is on the board, or if Devin Vassell is there at 10 and James Jones takes Desmond Bane, he's a fucking idiot, frankly. Yeah. But, it's that within reason, there are ways that you could talk me into those guys as like, yeah, let's just grab a good shooter and let's just go and shoot the lights out.
I'm going to tell you a guy who, if the Suns draft, we can be certain that it was a Robert Sarver pick, and we can be certain that the Suns may be screwed for the forever. And that is, do you have any guesses on what I'm going to say here?
Cash considerations?
Nico Mannion from the University of Arizona.
Is Sarver notoriously like a Arizona guy? Like
that's where he graduated from.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's where he went to school. And you can look back at the history of the Suns. For example, Steve Kerr. He hired Steve Kerr as a general manager. Steve Kerr went to University of Arizona. Drafting DeAndre Ayton is obviously a big one. That's a University of Arizona guy. And there were other guys that could have been picked at that pick. I don't know if you knew that. But all I'm saying is Nico Mannion, I think he might be fine. Like, he might be an okay NBA player at some point of his NBA career. But if the Suns pick him at 10, that's a disaster. That's the one I'm scared of. And I don't think it will happen, for the record. But if it does, get ready for a rant on this podcast. Any other thoughts on that one?
No, I still have a little bit of fear that they do sell the pick.
Yeah, that would be...
That's what I'm afraid of, is like my nuclear...
Okay, if that happens, should we just make this podcast about whatever team Devin Booker is traded to?
when he requests out?
When he requests a trade immediately after that?
In a year from now? Yeah, because I mean, some things would just be unacceptable. I think we can all agree that would be unacceptable from management. Just as selling the G League team was, in my opinion, and they still did that. Yeah. But let's move on to the next question.
Yeah, by the way, the G League team thing, that makes me feel like it's a lot less likely they're going to trade the 10 for like 14 and 30. Because the 30th pick in a lot of cases would be the type of pick that you send off to the G League to develop over time, and they just don't have that luxury the same way. Now, they still could send a player to a different G League team, even potentially the G League team that they used to own.
And this is also the type of draft where the fact that there is so much depth from like 10 to 40 really makes you want a management that's willing to, I wouldn't even consider it splurging, but just, like there are teams that have 4 or 5 second-round picks. I forget one off the top of my head, but I know there is at least one team, maybe the Sixers, that has like 4 second-round picks that's going to want to sell some of them off.
Right.
For like $2 million here or there. It would be nice to buy a second round prospect kind of in the mid to late second round and just store them in the G League, kind of like you did with Jalen LeCue, and just see what happens. But under the current leadership, with the financial situation, whatever it is of Robert Sarver, I just don't believe that that's likely to happen.
He broke. Okay, Suns Canucks asked us, which player's development is most crucial to this team, and why is it DeAndre Ayton? He kind of answered that for us.
He's right.
I mean, I guess we could break down why. I think it's pretty obvious. Devin Booker is a star, potential absolute superstar, potential best scorer in the NBA and is at some point of his career. The next most important player is the next player with the highest potential. And I just want to remind people, he's a massive dude with a super athletic body. He could be really, really, really good at basketball, DeAndre Ayton. And that development is important. But for a lot of reasons, he's that last line of defense. He's going to be guarding the rim. Devin Booker, not the greatest defender. They need to complement each other in the best possible ways in order for this team to be ultra, ultra successful. I know you agree with all this, so I guess the question would be, do you have any thoughts on who would be the next most important? Now, we'll say Devin Booker is an obvious. We'll throw him out too. We'll throw out DeAndre Ayton as well. Who do you think the next most important player as far as development is for this team? Going forward, I guess not necessarily next season, probably more of a long-term, I'm guessing he's asking.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because I think you could answer it in a couple of different ways.
I do too, yeah.
Inclined to say Mikal Bridges. I think if you ask the average Suns fan who's the most untouchable player after Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton, first of all, you've literally done that in the past.
Mikal Bridges was actually the second.
Exactly. People answered, so it's only natural of me to say Mikal Bridges in this case would be third here. You could make cases for other guys. So, I mean, Cam Johnson, if he does the kind of movement shooting that I would like him to do, becomes a super valuable player. And even with Kelly Oubre, my qualms with Kelly, as I've explained in previous episodes, have always been that I'm afraid that some of his weaknesses are things that you just can't teach a player anymore at like 25 or 26. Like, will Kelly ever learn to pass? I think if you haven't figured that out, how to pass out of a drive by year 5, you're just not going to. But theoretically, if he did that, he's a third, he's a reserve all-star type player, and he's fully deserving of a big contract extension at the end of next year. So it's like, if I could guarantee someone to kind of develop one skill for next year, maybe it would be, Kelly starts averaging 2 or 3 assists per game and kind of sharpens his defensive rotations and focuses a little bit more on that end, and he could become the third star type player we'd all like him to be. As opposed to what he is right now, which is an above average player, but not game changing.
Yeah, I think just from a contract perspective, Mikal Bridges is going to be on the Suns for longer, and the Suns have more control. So it's Mikal Bridges, it just is. But I think that the Suns, it's interesting the way people talk about Kelly Oubre to me, because I think if we had ultra confidence in the Suns' ability to develop players, then the potential in Kelly Oubre is so high. And really, he's only had one season on the Suns. He was traded at the trade deadline, before the trade deadline. It was like January or something. Previously, played a few games under Igor Kokoschka, maybe like 15 or 20. I don't remember exactly how much it was. Was injured, missed the rest of the season. Then, of course, a full offseason with the Suns, came back this year and was pretty good. I think better than what a lot of people expected, averaging 19 points a game, playing relatively good defense most of the time. But I think, with Kelly Oubre, I think you're right. I don't think there's going to be a major improvement with his passing in a single year. But I think there's so many little things with Kelly Oubre that if he got just a little bit better at each thing, that would make him a lot better. Like if he focused a little bit more off the ball on defense, that would make him a lot better. He's got super long arms. If they were to find the right defensive scheme to take advantage of what he's good at in that aspect, he'd be better. If he got a little bit better at cutting off the ball on offense, I think that would make him a little bit better. If he got a little bit better at passing, that would make a big difference as well. And then also handling the ball in the pick and roll. I think all of those things, if each one of those things got just a little bit better, which is the type of improvement I think you can expect out of a competent coaching staff, that would make him a lot better in the future if that was incremental year over year over year. So it's hard to say. And there's a weird world where, like, if Cameron Johnson just comes out next season and averages like 16, 17 points a game all of a sudden on like really good shooting because he's found a way of beating guys that are closing out on him, that could make a big difference too. And maybe he'd vault to the top of that somehow because he's probably the best scorer, like just pure scorer outside of Devin Booker on this team and DeAndre Ayton, but it's a little different. So, you know, I think it's Mikal Bridges, and then it's probably Kelly Oubre, then it's probably Cam Johnson. But at the end of next season, that who knows what that is going to look like. Mm-hmm. But right now, that's how I would rank it. All right. Yeah, hey, mate said, with all the wing and big talk, should we look to get a solid backup PG, or should we keep riding the campaign hype train? I think we're on the same page on this one, right?
Yeah, no doubt. The further we get away from the bubble, the more I come to my senses and realize it's not to take anything away from what the Suns did in the bubble. But look, they played a lot of teams with a lot of injuries. And we cannot let 8 good games from campaign outweigh what he's done for the majority of his career, which hasn't been that impressive. I think it sets up an interesting situation. So basically what I'm saying is I want the Suns to bring in another backup point guard for sure. Or at the very least, because I think this is acceptable too, a third guard, it could be a shooting guard, who has the ability to play point guard at times.
Right.
And I think there are cases... Yeah, like Burks. And I think there are cases where you can make that work. But I think there is a serious advantage to bringing in a guy like DJ Augustine, who I know has been talked about before, a veteran, clear-cut point guard who is going to run an offense. You know, a guy who has been to the playoffs before. He knows how to run an offense. Dragic would be great. Dragic isn't coming back.
Right.
Dragic
but
is not playing.
It's an example of a player. I guess maybe not a realistic one unless...
I think
I don't know.
What I struggle with a little bit after that, essentially, I think the Suns need more depth, and we can't fool ourselves into thinking that we're fine with just campaign next year. The problem is campaign still deserves a shot. He still deserves to come back and fight for the ability to play some minutes, whether it's like, say you bring in DJ Augustine, you let campaign fight for minutes. Augustine is going to be solid, as he is every single year, but maybe campaign finds a way to work himself into the rotation at shooting guard. You know, I mean, he's probably about the same size that like Brandon Knight was when the Suns played Knight at shooting guard. He could probably fill that sort of role. So he deserves a chance to fight for minutes.
Right.
But after that, it's like, do you want to bring back Javon Carter? I say yes, but if you bring back Javon Carter, is he really getting any playing time at all?
Right.
Do you want to bring back Ty Jerome? He probably deserves a second year, but like he's never going to play if you bring into it. So you know what I mean? And like Jalen LeCue is never going to play in this instance. Right. So it's like the Suns need more depth, but they also need to sort out their shit with the back end of their guard depth chart. And the reality about that is if they cut a couple of guys, they might get burns later on. You know, maybe you end up cutting Ty Jerome just because you need to. And 3 years from now, Ty Jerome is on the Warriors, and lo and behold, he's decent. You know,
right.
But those are the sorts of calculated risks that they need to at least consider.
Look, I just feel like the best case scenario for Cameron Payne and Javon Carter is that they're fighting for minutes. They're not your first option, but they have to make you play them. They have to play hard enough that you have no choice. I don't want the first option to be to play them. I want them to play so well that you can't take them off the court. And that means that somebody else is ahead of them in the depth chart in a lot of cases, and you put them in when they're playing very well, or they're showing something in practice, or whatever it is that Monty Williams has to make that decision. But I think, like we're looking at Cameron Payne where he's literally fighting for his NBA life in that bubble. If he did not play well there's a possibility that he would not play in the NBA next season. Now, I think he probably will. I think there's a chance that even if the Suns don't sign him, which they have his option next year, I think they probably keep him. Or maybe they use him in a trade. Like that's an option too. But I think he's going to be on an NBA roster next season at this point. And if we just use that to judge how good he's going to be over an 82-game season or whatever next season's going to be, it's probably not the smartest thing, but and there's a chance that he is the best option. We'll see. I think it's important to remember this team had no backup guards, period, in a lot of ways, point guard or shooting guard that were good. And like you said, if you get some sort of combo guard, if you get a good shooting guard that is like a proper scorer that can come off the bench and sort of be sort of a focal point of the offense when Devin Booker is out, then maybe you can get away with Cameron Payne or Javon Carter as the other options next to that guy in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, Alec Burks is a guy who we've covered on our YouTube channel, can play 25 minutes a game as the backup shooting guard, but is a good enough playmaker that he can fill the role of point guard. Jordan Clarkson probably doesn't want to come off the bench, but maybe he's also like a combo guard kind of option. And, I mentioned DJ Augustine, two things. I mentioned DJ Augustine. I think a lot of teams are going to be competing with DJ Augustine with their mid-level exceptions just because he's so boring in a good way. Like, that's DJ Augustine's game
reliable.
To me. He's reliable. You're never going to look at the box score or you're never going to look and watch the game and DJ Augustine's going to be going off and you're going to be like, whoa, 25-point eruption from DJ Augustine. No, he's going to run the offense. He's never going to turn the ball over ever. And then you're going to look at the box score at the end of the game, and he had 13 points and 5 assists, and you're going, oh, okay, cool. DJ Augustine ran the offense today, just as he always does. But there are other guys, too. Shabazz Napier is a free agent. I think he's a real solid option as a guy who's been a quality point guard for a few years now. Started some games for Washington this year. He's not a starting caliber point guard, but so he's kind of perfect as a guy who would accept a bench role. Trey Burke is kind of similar to Cameron Payne in a funny way. Trey Burke had a hell of a first-round series against the Clippers for the Mavs. Like, he exploded. He is the type of point guard who he'll really frustrate the fuck out of you sometimes, and then he'll explode for like 25 points randomly in a game. And, there were some games where Trey Burke looked like, I don't know, Steph Curry or something. He had one game in particular in the first round where he had like 30 points. So he's another option. One guy I really like out of Minnesota, I think he's one of the most low-key, underrated options on the free agent market this year, to the point where I've heard no one even mention his name once, and I think this is the first time I'm mentioning his name on the podcast, is Jordan McLaughlin. He's was an undrafted rookie, played 4 years at, I believe, UCLA. I might have to double-check that, actually. I think it was UCLA. And was low-key one of the better rookies this year for Minnesota. Played a small sample size of games, but looks like a guy, kind of like a light version of DJ Augustine, who can just come in and run an offense, and he's a restricted free agent, but I think that's an option too. And then, so those are just some options, but then the other thing is we could draft someone. Like, there's a big difference between the Suns drafting Kyra Lewis, who's 19 years old or something, and is going to take some development and is probably going to come in 155 pounds soaking wet and would be pushed around as a rookie, right? Versus them drafting Tyrese Halliburton, who probably can be like, maybe not a super amazing point guard in year one, but probably a guy who's comfortable with taking the reins in year one as a backup point guard and not being awful. Like, he's the type of prospect where he's not super old, but he has enough experience and is good enough at just kind of like the little basketball IQ things that the transition for him is probably going to come pretty quickly.
Right. Yeah, that's an interesting one. And I think that's another scenario where if you draft a point guard that could be your backup point guard, again, by the way, then maybe you do keep Cameron Payne, or one of Cameron Payne and Javon Carter, so you have a guy that was around a little bit, and you have options there. That would be very annoying for us doing a podcast about this team to have to talk about that night and night again. Who's going to play backup point guard? But, like we said, it makes a big difference if there's another guy next to them that can score. Sometimes I think about J.J. Redick, and I know he's getting older, but like if J.J. Redick was coming off the bench for the Suns for some reason, maybe you can get away with having a different kind of point guard just because you have a shooting threat out there at all times that's just, mucking things up by running around screens constantly. Mm-hmm. So just a thought. That would be a good veteran for the team, by the way, to teach guys like Cameron Johnson how to run around screens a little bit.
Or if you draft Des Bane as the next JJ Redick, that would be cool.
You've counted on restaurants, now they're counting on you. And while their dining rooms may be closed, they're still open for delivery with DoorDash. DoorDash is the app that brings you the food you're craving right to your door. Ordering is easy. Open the DoorDash app, choose what you want to eat, and your food will be delivered and left safely outside your door with the new contactless delivery drop-off setting. Choose from your favorite national restaurants like Chipotle, Wendy's, and the Cheesecake Factory. Many of your favorite local restaurants are still open for delivery too. Just open the DoorDash app, select your favorite local spot, and your food is on the way. Right now, our listeners can get $5 off and 0 delivery fees on their first order of $15 or more when you download the DoorDash app and enter the code BLUEWIRE. That's $5 off and 0 delivery fees on your first order when you download the DoorDash app in the App Store and enter the code BLUEWIRE. That's one word. Don't forget, that's BLUEWIRE for $5 off your first order with DoorDash. The wait is finally over. Football is back. You might not be at the game this year, but you can still be in on the action at BetOnline. BetOnline is going the extra mile to make sure you can get in on every possible chance to win this season. From game spreads and totals to team, player, and coaching props, BetOnline gives you more options to wager than anywhere else. You can get in on their season opening bonuses today and start off wagering on wins, divisions, and championship futures all day, every day. Head to BetOnline today and take advantage of all the great sign-up bonuses. Don't forget to use the promo code BLUEWIRE at betonline.ag. That's BLUEWIRE, all one word. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. All right, next one from it's your boy Jesus. He says, "How are unicorns fake but giraffes are real?"
You want to move on? No,
I mean, he makes a good point, I guess. I guess I have no thoughts on that.
What's so weird about giraffes? I've never really thought about this. Maybe someone.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you know this. They have really long necks.
No, I have seen a giraffe.
Though they're like really, they're like really long.
They are really long. I guess maybe that is weird. You know, like why would a unicorn not exist?
Can unicorns fly?
I think it depends on the lore.
I mean, like,
I'm not like a fantasy person.
So. But yeah, we're a different kind of nerd on this podcast.
Rhinos are basically hippos with a horn, and they can't fly. So by that logic, unicorns wouldn't be able to fly either if they're a horse with a horn. That's what I'm going to go with.
What we know for sure is that horns themselves don't make them fly. Based on that it's a small sample size, which, as we know, on a basketball podcast, doesn't mean anything. So
we specialize in logic here at the Timeline Podcast, and so QED, we figured that one out. Let's move on to the next question.
This is NATO D. He says, "Would you trade Ayton for Karl Anthony Towns?" Now this is important actually, because there was somebody on a
Lord forgive me for what I'm about to say.
For somebody on a Minnesota Timberwolves podcast that just recently stated that that he was told through his sources, a very good NBA player who is very close with Karl Anthony Towns said that Karl Anthony Towns is basically done in Minnesota. So this is a he said, she
Wait,
said.
I'm sorry. Who broke this story?
It's a Minnesota Timberwolves podcast boy, a man, I'm sure, but somebody of like well-renowned, somebody of renown in that community, somebody that is relatively well trusted.
I actually missed that one. I think,
I mean, it sounds like Devin Booker is the guy who said that. But by the way, a very good NBA player limits it to like, I don't know, 50 guys. And he told his agent is what the rumor is. So this NBA player who's friends with Kat told his agent, Kat's out, and then his agent, somehow that news trickled down to
I mean, based on what I've seen,
Timberwolves
Kat
podcast.
only has 2 friends in the NBA, and one of them is D'Angelo Russell, who's already his teammate. So it had to have been Devin Booker, you would think.
I mean, that was my first assumption. I was like, that's clearly Devin Booker.
Wasn't Jimmy Butler.
I mean, go ahead. You first. Would you trade it for Kat?
Yes. So I think it's, I don't want to call people out too harshly. Like, I don't want to say that this is revisionist history necessarily, but I think Suns fans in particular have to be acutely aware of how possible it is to be a superstar player on a bad team. Like, we have no excuse not to do that. Like, if there's anything we should know, it's that from the last 5 years of defending Devin Booker and watching Suns basketball. And I think Karl Anthony Towns is a guy that you watch consistently. And I'm not arguing that, look, if he was a perfect player, he wouldn't be on the trademark in the first place, right? So there are flaws, and building a defense, sustainable defense long term, around Devin Booker and Karl Anthony Towns might be difficult. But Karl Anthony Towns is such a next-level generational offensive player that theoretically, if Minnesota was even interested, yeah, you take that deal 100 times out of 100. And just to throw out a stat, I'm going to go advanced stat on you real quick. This year, Karl Anthony Towns posted, I believe he was 25 years old this year. He posted a career-high offensive box plus minus of 7.0. The only centers in NBA history to post an offensive box plus minus that high. Not their overall box plus minus, which in Cat's case is dragged down a little bit by his defense, so that's why I say there are issues. But all centers in NBA history with an offensive box plus minus that high, David Robinson in 1994, and Shaquille O'Neal 3 times with the Lakers. And that's it. This is a guy who he can break your defense by posting up. He can finish off a pick and roll. But he's also evolved to the point now 5 years into the league, or maybe even 6 years into the league, where he shoots 8 threes per game on over a 40% clip.
He'd be the best shooter on the Suns.
Yeah, he would. He is a better shooter than Devin Booker. He's a phenomenal rebounder. He can make advanced reads that at this point in his career, DeAndre Ayton can't even dream of making when it comes to his playmaking. The Suns would have 2 of the 10 best offensive players in the NBA. So, yeah. I mean, how can you really balk that much at that, you know? I think the downside is, theoretically, if Minnesota was even interested, it's not just DeAndre Ayton, you know? They want DeAndre Ayton, and they want, first of all, they need to match salaries. So they're probably taking, I don't know if they're taking Rubio back or they're taking Oubre, but they're taking one of them for salary purposes. And they want Mikal Bridges, and they want picks. Easily. Right. That's that's the sort of package we're building here. And it's a tough pill to swallow for the Suns and for Suns fans who not only don't want to lose DeAndre Ayton now that he's showing potential as a defensive anchor, but especially don't want to build around a defense of Devin Booker and Karl Anthony Towns without Mikal Bridges.
Yes,
but
exactly.
You'd figure it out. You know, like,
oh yeah, absolutely.
You'd figure it out. You'd pluck guys off the street, you know, who can defend but not do anything else, and you'd be fine. Ultimately, you really would. So I would do it.
Okay, so I will say this. Yeah, I would do it too. I think that you automatically probably have one of the best, probably a top 3 offensive in the NBA. And that's just you finding ways to fill in the pieces around those 2 guys just because of how good they are.
I think it's a purified form of what Dallas is trying to do with Doncic and KP, honestly.
Right.
They had the best offense in the NBA. So
one of the best offenses in NBA history, actually, by efficiency.
It just shows you what that ceiling would be.
Yeah, and at the same time, part of me is like, it's a nice thing where I feel like at this point, Booker, there's a chance that Devin Booker will be a better player than Karl Anthony Towns next year. Because part of me thinks if Karl Anthony Towns is your best player, that's a problem. If Karl Anthony Towns is your second best player, well, you're pretty damn good at that point. And that's kind of what I would hope for in that case, that Booker surpasses him. And in a lot of ways, I kind of feel like he did. I know that other people might consider that blasphemy, but I guess there was just a recent poll by Hoops Hype where they contacted NBA GMs, and I don't know, you did more of the research on this than me. And Booker was rated higher than Karl Anthony Towns on that poll.
That's what got me mad, because I think that's where the revisionist history comes into play. That's just people forgetting how good Cat is based on a shitty year.
Because Jimmy Butler destroyed his reputation.
I understand. And because, I think D'Angelo Russell I think there are guys who are overrated, and I think there are guys who are underrated. I look at Karl Anthony Towns and I see undeniable talent. I look at D'Angelo Russell
on a disaster team, right?
I see D'Angelo Russell. I think he's good. I think I don't think he's like glorified Rodney Stuckey or anything, or Brandon Knight back in the day or whatever. But he's a little bit better than that. But he still has major issues, and I don't think
he's nowhere near Devin Booker.
He's nowhere near as close to being a legit number 2 on a playoff team as I think some people think he is. That's all.
Right. I definitely would do it. But part of me has like Jimmy Butler in the back of my mind going, "Don't do it. Don't do it."
Yeah, and I understand. Name
There's
me
something
the last
there. I don't
team.
know.
Who's the better offensive player, Karl Anthony Towns or Devin Booker? I think it's Towns. Quite frankly, I think he's that good. But
yeah.
regardless of your answer, what's the last NBA team that had their second best offensive player as good as either
Devin
Either
Booker or
of those
Karl Anthony
guys.
Towns. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably the
I mean,
Warriors.
the Warriors with Curry and Durant.
Yeah.
And before
probably.
them, the fucking Heat with Wade and LeBron.
Also,
you know who?
Yeah, and also we should mention LeBron and AD are on a team together now, which is fucking bizarre. That is insane. Those guys are very, very, very good. Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, and I think that the way that I talked about how the ease of finding players that fit around, or I see the confidence I have in players working when they fit around Ayton and Booker. I mean, that's amplified by Karl Anthony Towns and Booker. You'd find ways to figure it out, and yeah, I think you would do that. But the other part of it is that we didn't even mention they're friends. That's probably good too. You make your star player happy. At that point, you make your two star players happy by not only pairing them together to be, one of the better, probably the best offensive duo in the NBA going forward, long term. Actually, I mean Luka too and KP, but
yeah, that's true. But yeah, my last point here before we move on, just also this is not trade the whole farm for Kawhi Leonard and leverage your future for 1 year of a guy, before he hits free agency like Toronto did a couple years ago, right? This is get another guy who's signed through 2024. So in a lot of cases, you look at it from a value perspective long term and you say, well, I don't want to lose the flexibility of being able to keep DeAndre Ayton and Mikal Bridges for 7 years for 1 year of Karl Anthony Towns, and I think that's a fair play. But if you've got two guys who are best friends locked up for the next 4 years, theoretically, if the trade was today, yeah, that's an easy decision. It's easy.
Right. And it would be very hard to do. Like if they want draft picks, OKC can just throw like 40 at them. So that'd be hard to beat. All right, next one. Does the Miami Heat run this year change the way you look at building our Suns team?
That's a fun question.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and I think that it does. I spent a lot of time in our last two episodes talking about not trading Kelly Oubre Jr. and having the option of three really good wings that are versatile in different ways on the roster, and allowing that sort of versatility to help the team in the in the regular season, and then be like a legitimate threat in the postseason. So in a lot of ways, yes. But I think so much of what Bam does well and what he's good at, DeAndre Ayton has to get good at in order for the Suns to be at their absolute ceiling. So I think that's the biggest thing for me, is watching Bam and trying to apply that into how I think about what Ayton can and can't do. And I don't think they're not the same player. They're just not. They're going to do it differently. But I still think there's a lot to learn there. What do you think?
Yeah, for me, it reaffirms. I mean, look, we did 2 whole episodes a couple weeks ago about what we can learn from the playoffs. And we talked about Duncan Robinson and Cam Johnson. And we talked about Bam Adebayo and DeAndre Ayton. So I agree with all that stuff. I still believe that they need to play like those players and they can learn a lot from them. Mostly, though, I think it reaffirms, from an organizational structure perspective, the need to find value in places where you normally wouldn't. And that's why the elimination of the G League team is such a punch to the gut, because you saw it first with the Toronto Raptors winning the finals last year and getting significant production out of guys like Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, guys who were drafted late or who had, in VanVleet's case, a history of going down to the G League. And lo and behold, here we are a year later. Duncan Robinson played 30-plus games in the G League last season. Kendrick Nunn played 40-plus games in the G League last season. Derrick Jones Jr. started out in the G League with Phoenix and then was traded to Miami and became something there. And he had a career year as just a role player. He's not leading that team. But the entire team, top to bottom, doesn't have a single guy who's drafted in the top 10. Not Dragic, not Adebayo, not Jay Crowder, not any of them. Not Tyler Hero. So it's just a phenomenal structure of that team and reaffirms, that it's not all about high-level draft picks for the Suns. They need to find ways to squeeze value out of second-round picks. I know they don't have one this year, but continuing to look for ways to add valuable talents at a low cost. And I hope James Jones and Jeff Bower and whoever's running the front office are prepared to do that.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point. Organizationally, there's a lot to learn, as far as the Suns go, from the Miami Heat. And it does make me grateful that James Jones spent so many years within that Heat culture. And I think he's trying to start something like that here in Phoenix, I am definitely grateful for that. I think, from another perspective, the ability of the Heat to change the type of defense they play from possession to possession and just be fully versed in that defense and those schemes is something that the Suns have to get really good at as well. And we talked about it in our last episode. That kind of makes you want to have as much continuity as possible going forward on this team, because the more players that are on this team from previous years, the less you have to teach everyone new vocabulary, for one, like different teams call things different things, but also understanding the system and the way that the coach coaches you, things like that. So, those are a lot of things to learn from them. But also, what they have is a bunch of good wings and a bunch of good guards and a really, 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 really good center. And if you could do that, you're probably going to be good. I mean, and Spo uses every single one in the exact perfect way that they're meant to be used. Looking forward, I really want them to win in those finals.
Yeah, me too.
That was VFB0711, by the way. I want to give that guy a shout out. That was a good question. Tizdu, our friend, said, I want to hear about your guys' first kiss.
Yeah, we're moving on from this one.
Yes,
we don't got time for this. I've repressed every memory from high school anyway, as it is. So
yeah, I'm 33 now. So how am I supposed to remember? Yeah, how am I supposed to remember?
Do you remember? That's all I'll ask. Do you
Not
even
really.
remember?
I have like this memory of, when you have memories of like stories that people tell you, like your parents will tell you a story of something you did when you were a kid, and you kind of remember it, but really you just remember. Yeah, that's like all of my memories now. I don't know. I guess that's just what getting older is like. Let's see. This guy is M Delion 11, I think. He said, just saw Oladipo wanting out of Indy. The headline of that. He said, what package is reasonable, or what can we put together for him? And then he said, Kelly, Frank in the 10th pick. Would that be reasonable? Kelly and Frank match salary plus a pick to match value.
And then he included a Bleacher Report link.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit about...
I'm kidding.
Not every Bleacher Report article is bad. Don't we have... I feel like we have a friend that writes for Bleacher Report. I'm not going
to... Dan Favalli.
Yeah. I mean, he's great.
He's great. So, no, yeah. Dan's great.
Okay, so... he wasn't very good.
I don't want him anymore. This is
he wasn't very good in the bubble.
It's probably not fair of me to say, when we were talking about campaign, like, slow down, we shouldn't judge guys by 8 games in the bubble or whatever. But, since the last time we've had a fleshed out Oladipo conversation, he was like outplayed by TJ Warren, and furthermore, isn't this a trade that doesn't make any sense for either side? Like, can you imagine being Indy? For us, it doesn't make sense because I don't want to pay Victor Oladipo $21 million a year next year to be mediocre. And I used to believe in his ability to bounce back. Maybe he still can, but I don't want to be the team to take that risk. I'll let some other team take that risk.
Yeah, there's a chance that we sound idiotic for even saying no to this.
Sure.
There's a chance.
But also, Indiana, like, why would you want Kelly Oubre and TJ Warren on the same team? What's in it for them? That'd be
hilarious. Yeah.
Like, for me, it's
no passing at all.
Them getting Kelly Oubre. Yeah, you've got 2 guys who average 1 assist per game in the same lineup. Like, you can't build around that. That doesn't make any sense in modern basketball. So for me, it's almost like Kelly has value in a vacuum, but to a team like Indiana, he doesn't have any value. He's just in this trade proposal for the purpose of matching salaries. So at that point, if I'm Indiana, the only thing I see here as value is the 10th pick, and I think I can get a better offer for Oladipo elsewhere.
I wonder,
though.
I
think both sides say no.
Yeah, I do think that there's some interesting possibilities where the Suns have options on, like I said, Cameron Payne earlier, and Frank Kaminsky next season. And I think for Frank, the only way that you pick up that team option, is if you're trying to make a trade like this and you need some extra filler money to match salary. By the way, a relatively smart thing for the Suns to do when they made that deal. Now they have the option of just saying no, clearing that cap space, and he can go sign somewhere else, or using him in a trade.
Or holding him hostage, yeah.
Yeah, holding him hostage, basically. Yeah, like I said, there's a chance that he bounces back. And if he becomes what he was, which is very unlikely, just based on what we saw. The injury was pretty brutal. We would look stupid because he's incredible, and he was an incredible defender and a really good offensive player. But a big part of the problem here is that one of the reasons he was so good is his lateral quickness, his speed, and his athleticism. And if that doesn't come back, he's not the same guy. He's not like a lights out shooter. He was a good shooter, but he's not who he was.
His defense is his selling point. I mean,
Right.
offensively, he was a good player for basically. There was only 1 year where he really played at like even close to a superstar level offensively, and he wasn't at a superstar level offensively. He was like reserve all-star level offensively. But the rest of his career, he's been, great defensive player, gives you a little bit on offense, some secondary playmaking for sure, and finishing. But yeah, nothing to write home about.
The season he got injured, I saw him lock down Devin Booker in person, and I was blown away by how good he was in person. Because I was like 10 rows up watching him, just going, "Oh my god!"
Honestly, I think
defense.
if you still want the guy who can do what Oladipo is doing, he's just a couple of years older and hasn't had the devastating injury yet. Sorry, what'd you say?
I know who you're going to say.
It's Drew Holiday.
It's Drew Holiday. Yeah.
It's Drew Holiday. You have to ask New Orleans, but they know. Like, New Orleans knows. Drew Holiday hasn't had that devastating knee injury yet, so they're going to command a heftier price. It's not just going to be Kelly Oubre and the 10th pick. I think they would want one of Mikal Bridges or Cam Johnson going forward, in that sort of trade. But would that be worth it for Drew Holiday? I mean, Jesus, Drew Holiday next to Devin Booker is a terrifying prospect for opposing offenses, opposing defenses.
It's
like
I love that idea.
It's yin and yang. It's the perfect balance of offense and defense, theoretically, if you could ever pair those two together.
Drew Holiday's at the point where you get him if you're trying to win a championship, I think. Not that the Suns aren't going to do that, but what I mean is like the Lakers would want him, the Nets would want him, the Heat would want him, the Celtics would want him. Those teams that are just almost there would make a play for him. And that would make him pretty hard to get at this point.
Yeah,
so.
I just looked it up. Drew Holiday has played a total of 30 career playoff games, and he has been in the league since 2009.
That's crazy.
He's probably getting a little bit restless. I would say.
Yeah, and he'd be great though. I mean, if he was on the Suns somehow, and the Suns didn't have to give up too much to get him, I would say we're a playoff team as long as everyone's healthy. Next question is from Krusty Goat. He says, this question makes me laugh, by the way. Could Monty's Suns benefit from a rim runner?
Why does it make you laugh?
Because that's what Ayton should be.
Okay, yeah, no, and that's what my answer was going to be.
In a sense, we have one, and it's still a good question because he doesn't do it as much as I want him to, right? So, yes, but here's what I will say. Before the 2019-2020 season, there were reports, most of them from Gambo, that basically laid out exactly what the Suns were going to try and do. They were going to try and sign or trade for a power forward, and they were going to try to find a backup center who could shoot threes. Then they traded for Dario Saric. They drafted a shooter, and then they were able to trade for Aaron Baines, a backup center who shoots threes. I think that the Suns and James Jones as a general manager actually do value spacing from the center position. They want Ayton to eventually be able to shoot threes and, of course, find some ways to eliminate that in-between game and still be a relatively good rim runner.
Yeah, I mean, because obviously they do. Because if the Suns wanted to keep Rashawn Holmes, who was a very good player last year.
That was exactly what I was going to say.
Oh,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
You had one. No, it's fine.
Keep going. Yeah.
We had one, and they let him go, and they replaced him with a guy who doesn't really do that.
And they replaced him with a guy who makes exactly the same amount of money. Like, It wasn't like Rashawn Holmes went and Sacramento signed him to a poison pill and gave him $12 million a year. Rashawn Holmes is getting the exact same amount of money as Aaron Baines. So it's purely a question of both players are pretty good. But one of them shoots threes and is a veteran, and the other one is a rim runner, and they chose against the rim runner.
Yeah. But I will say this again, and I've said this a lot on Twitter. These playoffs are very much defined by the teams that are the best at cutting. There has been such fascinating use of spacing in these playoffs, and I think this is something that's developed more and more each year, and it's one of the reasons that the Rockets now almost look like they're from a different era. Because of the standing around so much. The Heat are the best cutting team I've seen in a long time. The Lakers are very, very good at it. And the Celtics, I think, were another great example of a team that was just really, really good at cutting. And the reason those types of cuts work, specifically with like the Heat, for example, the reason it works so well with the Heat is Bam has the ball at the high post and he's able to drive and he can shoot that mid-range shot and players are able to cut around him. So there's not a lot of spacing from Bam, but when you have the ball, you have to guard him because he can score. So that opens up a lot of space for other players. So I think if you have the right like big man shooting threes, you still have to run to the rim a lot. You still have to get guys that are smart about cutting to the rim. Mikal Bridges got a lot better at it. Kelly Oubre, good at it currently, still needs to improve. And I think Cam Johnson was making a more concerted effort as the season went on to get better at cutting. Devin Booker, elite already. So I think as far as a rim runner, maybe not necessarily, but getting better at timing your cuts and having the right kind of off-ball movement to maximize this type of spacing that this team could potentially have in the future, that's, I think, what they need to get better at going forward. And I think the whole NBA is going to move towards that a little bit more. Less standing around is good. All right, this is from Magic Trick, except the G is a Q. I don't know how to say that. Makich Trick. Okay. What are your guys' thoughts on Aaron Nesmith as a prospect for the Suns? I guess we already covered that.
I feel stupid if we said his name wrong 30 times already. We already covered that. I think the only thing I want to add there is I have Bane way before Nesmith. I don't have a big board. I'm not that well researched. But
I mean, we only really study for where the Suns are picking. At least that's the way I am.
Exactly. That's why it's like, I don't know a lot about the guys who are currently projected in the like 20 to 40 range because I didn't assume that the Suns would be picking there. I could be wrong. But with Nesmith, it's like, I don't really want him because it's like, we've talked about it before too. It's like, so you can shoot, but like I could go and get Troy Daniels in free agency, and like he'd probably be just as good as you. You know what I mean? Like it's
whoa. 6'10" wingspan. I just want to bring that up again.
I know.
It's not common that you have a lot of guys who shoot that well and have a 6'10" wingspan.
I know. You got to do something else though. You really like Nesmith averages 1 assist. The one critical difference between Bane and Nesmith. Nesmith averages 1 assist per 40 minutes at the college level. Not a playmaker. Right. Bane is a secondary ball handler. He's a shooting guard. He averages like 4.5 assists at a decent, and he doesn't turn the ball over too much. So it's like little things like that. It's like it's not just about can you shoot. Obviously, it's the NBA in 2020. We want guys to shoot, but you need to put the ball on the floor and do something with the ball. And if you can't do that, I am not taking you 10th overall. I don't want a guy who can't dribble 10th overall.
I don't know. Part of me does like him.
Look, we'll see.
Yeah. But I'm not like overly confident in that. I just think I watched the clips and I'm like, that's a shot. Like that's a real shot. And like that goes a long way for me. And when you have a 6'10" wingspan,
but man, like
that makes
Poku
you a potential
shoots,
NBA player.
Poku has a shot. Why not just?
Yeah, but he weighs like 90 pounds.
Yeah, I know. He's.
And I would draft him too at like 30 if I had the 30th pick or maybe later. But
no.
Yeah.
You would take Poku at 30?
Yeah, why not?
But you would take Nesmith at 10?
I'm not saying I would. I'm just like I said with both Bane and Nesmith. If the Suns pick them, I'm going to talk myself into it. There's just a world where I can see both of these guys being effective NBA players. And that's not necessarily the case for a lot of players that I see, but I do think that there is a world where Nesmith is a good NBA player. I don't know. I have a hard time caring about what anyone thinks about drafting too high if you truly believe in someone, and I'm not necessarily like that with Nesmith. But if the Suns did draft him, I would like to believe that they saw something there that makes them feel like he would be a really good NBA player. So,
I understand
I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt that they necessarily haven't earned though.
They totally haven't earned. Come on, man. Like, I understand the strong temptation to say fuck you to all the analysts and just be like, I want to take this player where I want to take him. Like, you've said you would take Vassell like second. Great.
Fourth. Maybe third.
Third or fourth. Not a lot of other people would do that. Right. That's cool. I think that's cool. But yeah, the Suns organization, I don't know that they've earned the ability to just swing for anyone they want at 10.
I mean, here's the thing, though. All their picks sort of between 10 and 15 from the last few years have been good. Like, that's actually where they have been good.
Right, but those weren't James Jones picks.
Yeah, I mean, he was around for some of them, just not as the main decision maker. So, yeah, it's obviously difficult difficult to know.
You sound like a shill. That's all I'll say.
No, I mean, here's the thing.
I
always
Jeff
like
Bauer shill.
I mean, just outside of even the Suns, I just really like shooters. That's just the way I am. I just really like guys who can shoot really well. I tend to think if you're going to draft the super high IQ defensive players or draft the super good shooters, if you're not in like the star range, and then at least you probably have a one NBA skill.
I just think I could probably sell you. There are probably other prospects that other people would do a better job than me selling you on.
Oh yeah,
that do more than just shoot, which is all that Neesmith does. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, I absolutely. It would be the thing that happened with Cam Johnson, where I go, wait, there's these other guys that could have been here, and then later on, I'm like, wow, this guy can really shoot. Maybe that's okay. Like at least we get to see that. So, all right, this guy's I am a dragon.
I'm a dragon, I believe that is.
Oh, that's right. Who is the worst player worth a 10 plus Kelly Oubre trade? So the 10th pick plus Kelly Oubre. Would the team be better if we... And then I had another question. Let's start with that first one. How long have we been...
Do you have an idea?
We just passed an hour here. Oh, okay. The worst player...
Well, like Shaq Harrison. I'd do it.
No.
Fuck
Sam.
it, I'd do it.
No.
I'm kidding. Man, I don't know. Like, if we wouldn't do Oladipo, and I think we already said Drew Holiday was worth more than that.
I would definitely do that.
It's just it's a very small tier of players in there.
By the way, for Drew Holiday, just to match salary alone, you would have to have like Kelly Oubre plus something else.
Plus something else.
Yeah. Something at the Ricky Rubio level of salary.
Luke Kennard is not good enough, I think, to even be at this level. I know he's
10th pick alone, maybe, but yeah.
Yeah, 10th pick and like something for Kennard, but you throw in Oubre and it's not worth it anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's a player clearly out there in on the rumor mill that fits this description. I'd have to think.
Like Miles Turner is another player that might be available. And
that name actually occurred to me too. He just doesn't have any value for us.
That's exactly how I feel. Because like in a vacuum, that's probably a fair trade.
Like Indiana doesn't want Oubre,
right?
They just don't. There's no way. There's no way.
Yeah.
There's no
I
way.
think that's a hard one without having names. I am a dragon.
Spencer Dinwiddie, right? Like he's not good enough.
Oh, I don't know. That's interesting.
You think? Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know. That's actually pretty interesting. It's hard to know. Like, this was a problem I had when I was talking to the OKC guys, by the way. Fun podcast. Appreciate them having me on. But so much of, like, the potential ideas of what could happen with the Suns was like, well, what role is this player willing to do for the Suns? Like, how impressed were NBA players by their bubble run? Like, would somebody like Dinwiddie be willing to, I don't know, come off the bench? I guess he would probably start. And then would Ricky Rubio be willing to come off the bench? That kind of thing is where you're like, I don't know. It's really hard to say. So I'd like to, if you have any names that you want to throw at us when we post this thread on Reddit, I am a dragon, I think we can jump in there and give you a little ideas of who we would say yes to and who we would say no to. I think I'm just on, I tend to say no with Kelly Oubre. I looked at a lot of the free agents for 2021, and part of me is like, Kelly Oubre could be like a top 5 free agent from this class as far as over the course of his next contract. So
it's kind of wild.
Keep him. Yeah. Would the team, and then he also said, would the team be better if we stopped force-feeding Ayton in favor of designing more players for Mikal, Oubre, Cam, etc.? It's an interesting question when people say designing players for specific players, plays for specific players, because I think the way the NBA works is plays aren't always specifically for players. I think there are clear plays that are designed for like shooters jumping out to the 3-point line and trying to get a shot. But like so many plays are just designed to have multiple options. And
if it doesn't have at least 2 options, it's a shit play. So,
exactly. So but I understand what he means. And basically I tend to agree that maybe less of Ayton catching it in the high post is good. But then you sort of watch Bam Adebayo and what he does as a playmaker in that high post, and maybe Ayton can't do that. Like, maybe he just can't, and then you don't do that. But maybe you should try a little bit and see if he can. So I think there's the big thing with Ayton is if you're feeding him the ball in the high post, he has to have some sort of game going towards the basket on his own.
Yes. Yeah.
And if he develops that, then it's okay to feed him a little bit more because that's going to open everybody up a little bit more.
Also, I've talked about it before. Handoffs are so huge for centers in the NBA from that high post positioning now. It's like, if Ayton isn't there, you have to be thinking, well, what is he doing? And if the only other options are he's in the low post, which is not good offense in 2020, I do want him to post up sometimes, but just not as his go-to. Or just doing spread pick and roll every time, which is really easy and predictable to guard. I call that the Earl Watson Suns offense from a few years ago. Then, you need to find a happy medium of, okay, sometimes he is going to be in the mid-range area, not specifically because he's supposed to take the mid-range shot, but because he's going to facilitate something else by setting a screen for a guy who's going to curl around and do that handoff sort of action.
Right.
Whenever they have so many plays out of that horn set where Ayton is exactly in that position. So it's just going to happen. But I would kind of reject, I'm going to push back on the notion that Ayton is being force-fed in the first place. I think for a number 1 overall pick center in his second year, the Suns have been very reasonable about their offensive expectations. And I think something that's been consistent from day one, whether he was playing under Igor Kokoshkov or now under Monty Williams, I think the train of thought has always been defense first for this guy, and let's train him to be a defensive player. And the vast majority, if not all, of the development we've seen from Ayton to this point has been on the defensive end for a reason.
Yeah.
So I don't see this as a huge issue right now. Like, I want the Suns, don't get me wrong, I want the Suns to run more plays for Cam. I want them to run more plays for Mikal. But I don't, I've never looked at Ayton as like a black hole on offense. I think he takes too many of those mid-range shots, but it's not like his usage rate is like out of control,
Right. There was an article written recently about this concept of a cut assist, which is essentially
that's a Mo. That's
okay. Yeah,
Dakhil.
Is that how you say it? I don't know how to say it.
Dakhil. I don't actually know.
This is the podcast of us not being able to pronounce stuff with a combination of Reddit usenames.
You read a name so many times, and then you have to say
Dakhil. Yeah, I loved that article. First of all, it was really interesting. But I think going back to the rim runner question, Ayton's role in offense, if he rolled hard on his rolls to the rim, if he just rolled hard to the rim, that makes everybody's life easier on the Suns on the offensive end. So, if you just simplify his role to just being a guy who runs hard to the rim, he's going to get the ball a lot, because if he's open, you just throw it up high and he'll get it. 2, if it opens up shooters, good, because now he'll be in the position for that offensive rebound where he's one of the better offensive rebounders in the NBA. And he'll get easy points that way.
Good point.
And just to me, he needs to do those types of things over and over and over again really well. And if he starts getting that down really well, then you give him the ball a little bit more and you start rewarding him. But I think you're right. To me, defense is, I've said it over and over again, the most important thing for him as far as the ceiling of this team. And then going forward, if he can do a little more with the ball, then good. But simplifying his role, if there's good players around him, is okay. It's okay. Ridiculous Cage. Which Suns player from any season, drafted or free agent, were you the most disappointed by?
This is an old school Reddit user, I think, by the way. My memory is fuzzy at this point. Sometimes I forget who's been around the community for 8-9 years.
Yeah, he definitely has.
Yeah.
Who were you the most disappointed by?
So I think it's easy to say like Josh Jackson or Dragan Bender or Marquise Chris or whatever, but there's always that nagging feeling in the back of your head, even when you take a guy in the top 5 or the top 10, that this could bust. It's a reasonable probability, especially when you're a Suns fan in 2017, and it's like they've already busted on Alex Len and Chris and Bender aren't looking so great, and you're like, oh God, they're going to do it again. But I think the guys I was most disappointed by were the year after, when they signed Trevor Ariza and traded for Ryan Anderson.
Yeah,
because there it was supposed to be foolproof.
Right.
It was like
stabilizing. Yeah,
no one went into that. Was the first year that we did this podcast together, and I believe we both expected around 35 wins that season because we predicted that, which we were right. Devin Booker would take a leap. But then we also thought that he would get some help, and we were wrong about that one, unfortunately. Right. So, when it's a guy who's been around the league for 10 plus years, like Trevor Ariza, you're really expecting a certain level of professionalism and play every single night, and he just didn't bring it. And frankly, once we got to last offseason, when we, as excited as I was to bring in guys like Rubio and Baines, there was a big part of me that believed that it was going to be round 2 of that, and that maybe the Suns culture was so weak, even in the post-McDonough era, that they just wouldn't be able to overcome it, and it would just be part 2, and Rubio would struggle and Baines would struggle. I distinctly remember in a podcast last summer I said about Aaron Baines, I think he's a solid backup, but I remember saying that I thought there was a decent chance that come February the Suns' record is not looking so good, and they're at the back of the conference in the 13th, 14th, 15th seed, and there would be Baines quietly begging the front office to give him a buyout so that he could go sign with the Lakers or Clippers. And to his credit, that never happened. And the Suns played pretty well. And those guys, Rubio and Baines, were the 2 big veterans, and they were nothing but professional all season long. I'll throw Saric in that group too, even though he spent a little bit less time in the league as a whole.
Yeah, there was always a possibility that something like that could have happened. I feel like I've been more disappointed on draft lotteries like that night than anything else, because like Ben Simmons, I really wanted Ben Simmons on the Suns. Like, that's something I really, really wanted. And
although we did have the opportunity to draft maybe the best player of this generation. Like, that was the one that we won.
Mm-hmm. And that was one of the lottery nights where I wasn't disappointed. And I'll be honest, and I said it the entire time. I just want one of these 2 players. Please just give me one of these 2 players. That's how I felt in the 2018 draft.
Not Marvin Bagley, please.
yeah, exactly. And we got one of the 2, so I'm not going to be ultra disappointed by that necessarily. I mean, I am. Ultimately, I am. But like, I was also wrong, so whatever. I thought it was going to be close between those 2 players, and it's really not yet. And that's no fault of Ayton's. I think Ayton's is on a normal good rookie or good young player trajectory, whereas Luka is on like a historic trajectory, so nobody's as good. But yeah, I feel like I think you had some good answers there. I want to throw another name out there, Brandon Knight. But mostly because I was such a huge Dragic fan, and it sucked.
I was just, I think there's another question. I don't know if we're going to get to it at this point. We're going over our time, but we'll keep going for a little while. Just like us to...
Yeah, we do have a few more.
To run over on a podcast. Say we're going to go for an hour and then go for an hour 30 or whatever. But I was so fucking stupid a few years ago. Like, I could be... my biggest takeaway from the past 5 years of Suns basketball is just that I feel like now I can see the nuances. I feel like I've grown stronger. And now I can see the little nuances in the game that separate the guys who belong from the guys who don't belong. Like, I look back at a young 18, 19, 20-year-old me who thought Tyler Ulis was going to be, something, or Mike James was going to be something, or Brandon Knight was going to be something, and I fell for it every time. And I think that's what built my cynicism that you see now, and you have seen, sometimes on the podcast for the past 2 years. But I'd also like to think it's just made me a smarter viewer of the game, going through so much struggle. And
I'm still mad at McDonough, as you guys all know, about how the ending with Dragic went. But yeah,
it's just he was such a bullshit salesman, man. I mean, the thing about McDonough, and the reason I fell for it time and time again, one, because I locked myself in echo chambers. I mean, Reddit, we love you guys, and we do the same thing on Twitter. When you put yourself in an echo chamber for long enough, and it's a Homer subreddit where people have positive opinions about the team, obviously you're going to kind of become like-minded to those people over time, over long periods of time. But also, McDonough always just seemed so smart. Like, he always just seemed like he had a brilliant plan. And, he did it to us again and again.
Hey, maybe he did. He was just a pushover with Sarver. I don't know.
I don't know, man. But judging from the way he runs his Twitter account these days, I don't think he's such the sharpest tool in the shed anymore.
How do you feel about pick... I don't know. We have so many. We can't get through all of these questions. We can't. Maybe we should just pick. Here's one. More. Who would win 1-on-1 between the 2 of us?
You go first on this one.
I have to say that's me. I mean, what can I say? I can't say you.
That's from. Well, you could have done the humble thing, but that's from. That's from
this is on the court, man.
Piz Wizzy. One day I'll come out to Phoenix and we'll test it out. I would have said 6 months ago. I mean, I'm 11 years younger than you, so I think...
yeah, and to be honest, I haven't done much. I haven't played basketball basically at all in this COVID world. So
neither have I.
You have an advantage just with the young legs. You're right.
Yeah, well, but I'm out of shape now.
And technically, world, so. If we're going by like 10,000 hour rules, I've probably shot a lot more shots than you, just being like 10 years older.
Yeah, I mean that never leaves you, man. I mean, if you're a good shooter, that just doesn't leave you, and you can continue to be that geriatric dude who shows up to the court and puts in a couple hours in your 50s.
I'm gonna be that old guy that goes to the gym at like 7:30 in the morning and shoots like 400 free throws and then leaves. That'll be me when I'm like in my 60s.
That's so annoying. Don't do that.
Yeah, taking up the entire
especially when you go and there's only one court. And you're just taking up the half court, just shooting free throws.
I respect it. Mostly because, Sam, when you're in your 30s, you want to play half court anyway.
That's true.
Let's see. Do you want to pick one more here of these questions? And I hate to do this to everyone that asks questions, but we can't force people to listen to an hour or to 2 hours every week. So,
let's see. I'm looking through.
Okay, here's one. Let's do this one. I think this is a good ending one. AZ Nate 8. How well can we realistically expect the Suns to do next season?
I mean, if you extrapolate from 8-0,
yeah,
it's 82-0.
He said it's obvious that we're a young team that thrives in low levels of stress. I think that's interesting. Maybe he's right. But although you can argue that the bubble is higher levels of stress, should we expect us to build off of the improvements from the bubble, or will this increase in expectations come back to bite us? I want to mention James Jones did say he's not going to overvalue performances in the bubble in building the team next year. And we've over and over again talked about how we think that's the smart approach as far as building the team going forward. Look, I'll be honest. Part of me is like, man, the Suns could be really good next year. Like part of me believes, like it genuinely believes that, because there's just a few positions that if you fix, could make a pretty massive difference. Like as good as Aaron Baines was, if you have a backup center that's good that can play 82 games, that would make a big difference. The obvious things are the backup guard positions. If you fix those two backup guard positions, that makes a massive difference. But then you're talking about another year of development from Devin Booker, another year of development from Mikal Bridges, another year of development from DeAndre Ayton, and Booker hitting what could be like basically the beginning of his prime here. As I talked about it recently, maybe the cracking of his like title, best player on a title team window, if he can improve. And part of me thinks they're going to be really good. And maybe I'm setting myself up for massive disappointment going forward.
Really good.
Like a 6th seed, for example.
The thing we have to keep in mind is we're not the only ones who are projecting improvement, right? We've talked about it before. The Thunder are the only team that are expected to fall out of the playoff race next year. Everyone else is trying to stay in it. And Golden State, you have to remember, is going to be right back in there. So if Golden State comes back and they snatch, because I'm not going to bet against Steph Curry and Klay Thompson at this point, I'm just not going to do it. I'm going to assume that they come back and are most likely to snatch up OKC's spot. So that leaves the Suns competing with the same exact teams they were last year. So is De'Aaron Fox going to get a lot better for the Kings?
Right.
And Bagley, who knows, Bogdan, if they re-sign him, but he healed, whatever. Is Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr., are they going to get a lot better for Memphis? Is Zion Williamson, like the supposed next GOAT or whatever, who was amazing in the 20 games that he played, going to get a lot better for New Orleans? We can't just assume that it's going to be easy for us, because we know in the conference we're in, it's just not. But I think the simple place where you start for the team building is, follow up what worked for you last year. The premise that worked for the Suns last year with James Jones is just identify the guys who are the biggest black holes on this roster, who are obviously providing negative net value, and get rid of them and replace them with competent players. They don't have to be the best players in the world, but no more Josh Jackson minutes in that case, And who else did they get rid of next year? They went from playing 2,000 minutes of Elliot Kobo to 500 minutes of Elliot Kobo. Well, now what we need to do next year is play 0 minutes of Elliot Kobo and play 0 minutes of Ty Jerome. And don't start Frank Kaminsky for 15 games at center. Those are the obvious areas. And you can't control all of that. Some of it is injuries. But those are the obvious negatives on this roster that you need to plug up with extra depth. So that's kind of where the argument of, well, maybe the Suns should enter the summer over the cap and not focus on getting the massive free agent fish, and just focus on adding 2 to 3 more solid role players in free agency plus a decent NBA ready prospect at 10, and go in with as many positive replacement level players as possible. Maybe that's the best strategy. I mean, that's basically what Miami is this year. They don't have like an overwhelmingly amazing superstar. They just have a lot of pretty good players.
Yeah, but did they hit with Hero?
Yes, they did, and they're smarter than us, and they have a better culture than us.
Yeah. But I think with what you just said, the sort of plan, I do feel like the Suns could be over 500 with those changes, which is a massive improvement.
I agree.
And part of me feels like I'm insane for saying that out loud. The other part of me feels like I want to be the first to say it out loud, right? Because maybe it's right.
I mean, they could win 50 games. Is that insane to say? Like,
a little bit, yeah.
Is it?
A little bit, yeah.
Why do you say that?
Because of how difficult the NBA is and how much better other teams are going to be. And I still don't look. It's a little bit insane, and I still think that I tend to kind of agree with it as well. Just because they just have a lot of guys that are reaching the right age to be a pretty good team here.
Well, and to your point, in 2009, you've brought up this example before. In 2009, the Oklahoma City Thunder won 23 games.
Yeah.
In 2010, they won 50.
Yeah.
And they're an unusual scenario. They had literally 3 guys who would grow up to be MVP candidates who were all coming into their own at once, plus Serge Ibaka. But what I'm saying is, if DeAndre Ayton is worth his shit, if he is the player that a lot of Suns fans think he is and hope he is, and next year is the year where he goes out and he averages, it's not even so much about the stats, but just to throw something out. If he goes out and averages 23 and 12 and gives us good defense every night, and he cuts out some of the mid-range bullcrap and hits a couple threes, that is the second best player on a 50-win team, I think.
Yeah.
And Mikal Bridges is very clearly a good player. A positive player. And Kelly Oubre and Cam Johnson, these guys are very clearly, Ricky Rubio as well, positive players. So then, you go out, you say no more Elliot Kobo minutes, no more Ty Jerome minutes, let's get DJ Augustine instead. No more Frank Kaminsky minutes, let's I don't know, there's a bunch of things that you could do there.
Yeah.
You plug up the holes, and if you get the right development out of Ayton, there's a 50-win team there. But on the other hand, I'm not saying that that's the most likely scenario. I think the most likely scenario is shoot for 500.
Right, 100%. I definitely agree with that. And I think there's a chance that because of how good the West is, that those types of teams actually still could make the playoffs. Not necessarily because it's bad, but because it's good. There's going to be a lot of teams competing for that. I think the playoffs is absolutely the goal, and getting over 500 should be part of that goal as well. I don't know if you know this, Sam. Something I don't think Suns fans talk about enough. The Suns had the best lineup in the NBA last season by net rating. I know we never bring it up.
Yeah, in 4 games. Yeah,
I don't know. It's just funny, but it's true. I think you look at the lineups that are good; they're really good, and if you can fix the lineups that are really bad, that's going to have a massive effect. Without the Suns don't have to make a massive trade to make a massive effect on how good the team could be next season.
Right. It's just going to be sad if they make all of the right improvements and one of 2 things happens. Either DeAndre Ayton gets suspended for a full season this time.
Oh, God.
or knock on wood, this table is wood, so don't worry. If
an injury or something,
yeah, you can do all the right things to make the improvements, and then one of your top 3 players goes down for 50 games, tears an Achilles or even worse, an ACL or whatever, and it's over. That's it. So you got to be lucky, you got to be smart, and you got to be lucky to be the best team in the NBA. No shortcuts.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I apologize to the people that we weren't able to get to your questions. I definitely, once again, I appreciate everyone asking us questions on Reddit. Like I said, our roots are on Reddit. So thank you to everyone. I appreciate everyone listening. We'll be back next week. talking about something else. Who knows? I say that at the end of every episode. One last thing. Don't forget to register to vote. There's only a little bit of time left before you reach that deadline in Arizona. But we'll be back next week.
Dragic now, 5 to shoot. Lost it momentarily. Pulls back. Dragic a three-pointer. Bang! Goran Dragic from downtown. And the Heat lead by 5. All bubble long. Put this team on his back when it mattered most. Not afraid of the moment. Beautiful offense. Bang! Goran Dragic from downtown.
Sugar Ray Leonard, Roberto Duran, Marvelous Marvin Hagler, and Thomas Hearns. Legends, whose four-way rivalry defined one of the greatest eras in boxing history. Relive their decade of dominance in the new Showtime sports documentary, The Kings, a 4-part series premiering Sunday, June 6th, only on Showtime.
This episode is brought to you by Ro. Confidence is everything. Women can sense it, and trust me, they love it. But if you're in your head worried about performance, that swag, unfortunately, gentlemen, it's gone. Rose Sparks keeps you ready. When the moment hits, you can step up like a superhero and handle your business. No doubt, just confidence.
Fellas, Rose Sparks gets you ready fast, dissolving under your tongue and working in 15 minutes on average. No waiting, no missing the moment. Plus, it stays active up to 36 hours.
So when the mood hits, you can go back to back to back, round after round after round. Ro connects guys with medical provider 100% online, so there's no awkward conversation with in-person providers. Go to ro.com/sparks to see if you qualify. If prescribed, new sexual health patients gets $15 off Sparks on reoccurring plan. Connect with the provider at ro.co/fourth to find out if prescriptions Ro Sparks are right for you. That's ro.co/fourth for $15 off your first order. If approved, treatment ships directly to their door. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, and/or manufacturing review. For full safety information, go to ro.co/safety info.